that there is no third party or criminal involvement and that this is not suspicious, but a tragic case of a missing person.
I said that if Nicola's here, I'll find her. If Nicola was in that river, I would have found her. I can guarantee you that. She wouldn't have, we would have found her, and she's not there in that section of the river up there. In my personal view, getting carried out to the sea, I think it's a long way to go in a tidal river, a tide that goes out, a tide that comes in. I would have thought that she would have surfaced by now and been found by dog walkers. That's my honest opinion. I'm totally baffled by this one, to be honest.
Whilst other people may speculate and spread rumours, there is no evidence whatsoever or information, and there has been a vast amount reviewed, I can assure you, in the last almost 3 weeks, to suggest any third-party involvement or Nicola leaving that field.
You've got to be much more open. What is going on? And this afternoon, I got some further information and pressed them on the fact that, what has been the attendance of at this house in relation to the emergency services. And of course, we had this rush press release out this evening. They are changing their strategy. The senior officers within Lancashire have acknowledged that there is some failings here.
Up a helicopter, then a drone. At 11:36 this morning, they'd received reports of a body in the river just outside the village. They called in divers, who then confirmed the awful news. It hasn't yet been formally identified, but a body has indeed been found. About a mile downstream from Nicola Bulley's last known whereabouts, near a park bench overlooking the river 3 weeks ago on the morning of January 27th. There's been widespread criticism of a police investigation that's being scrutinised at the very top of government.
The inquest into the tragic death of Mother 2 Nicola Bulley was opened and adjourned here today at Preston Coroner's Court. The hearing in front of Lancashire Coroner Dr James Adeley lasted just 4 minutes, during which time Dr Adeley took only evidence of identification. He confirmed that the mother of 2 had been identified from dental records provided by her dental surgery in Great Eccleston. In court were just 7 members of the press. Dr Adeley told them that he had informed Nicola's family of the time and venue of the hearing, but they had chosen not to come for reasons he said were totally understandable. Dr Adeley adjourned the inquest and said that he was hoping to reconvene it in full in June.
Hello all, and welcome back to Mind Juice. The community is continuing to grow, and the interaction and conversation has been stellar. My initial focus was always fixed on being more than just content and videos. Better yet, building a purpose, a cause, a community wherein together, through conversation and analyzing things alongside one another, we can make progress. So thank you everyone for making that happen. Also a special shout out to those giving recommendations and sending in their support via stickers. It is appreciated more than you will ever know. Truly a blessing. It's amazing. The camaraderie, all in all, takes things up to a whole nother level. And to those who simply prefer to just watch and move on along, that's completely cool too. You do you. Now, the episode I have for you here today is indeed going to get those mind juices flowing. I intended on this piece coming out a few days earlier. However, I kept finding myself faced with new revelations, aspects that had me going back and over and back and over. What it is I wanted to get across to all of you. So, just a note, never worry if I will be coming back. I always will. Just remember, I am most likely caught up, kicking boxes around, as my fellow friend and subscriber Nunya Beeswax would say, researching, trying to straighten things out, so that I can produce things with absolute clarity. With that said, the delay will prove to be well worth it. Settle in and relax. Also, a big thumbs up to all of you sending me information. I truly appreciate it. It really goes a long ways across the pond for me attempting to get to the bottom of everything. My aim here today, going forward, is broadly speaking twofold. That is, I want to first recap and revisit the River Wyre bench inconsistencies, precisely referring to the idea that Nicola remained in the water for the entirety of the 23 days, for that is what the official narrative remains at this time. Now, in my opinion, things still don't add up, and I further venture to prove this here today. Hence, there are quite a few new thoughts and observations that I have come across that I want to add in, as I feel they indeed add further clarity to the river wire inconsistencies, namely an aspect off of Rockcliffe Road, as well as taking into account the spring tidal variables as to the water levels throughout that time frame, and how such may and could have likely affected the circumstances in regards to finding Nicola in a more timely manner. Further, why is there no CCTV footage or evidence of Nicola in St. Michael's that morning? Sure, we have the ring door cam photos of her in Inskip, her home, supposedly leaving her house that morning, which are questionable to say the least, and I won't get into that here. I mean, there is and are 2 provided photos of witnesses on the towpath. The lady with the prom and the lady in the red coat walking her dog from allotment lane. Yet, we have absolutely no evidence of Nicola absolutely anywhere. Do the police have shots of her, just have chosen not to release them? I contest that logic suggests that they do not, because their choice of words illustrate this. They say, we have no evidence to show or believe that Nicola left the field. My question is, do they have evidence to show or believe she ever went into the field? Or are they merely taking that her phone, the harness, and Willow as being that proof? I think so. Now, yes, I understand many will say in response, well, yeah, she sent a text, opened a Teams call, witness saw her in the upper field, etc. Did she send these messages now? Was it Nicola that was seen? Aside from this activity on her phone, we have nothing. Thus, we are left to fill in the gaps, presuming it had to be her. Why? Initial reports suggested that one of the witnesses, the lady in the red coat, passed Nicola that morning and even went so far as to state that their dogs briefly interacted. Now, the lady in red has publicly come out and spoke, stating that she never saw Nicola and Willow that morning. So which is it? The mysterious old man with the white dog still has yet to be identified, solely speaking through his wife, whom also has yet to be identified. Now, I personally question whether or not this is even a true account, yet rather more along the lines of being fabricated along the way. Much like the 2 mysterious fishermen. Someone's spinning yarn here, everybody. Further, I want to address Ron, the brother-in-law of Penny, whom owns the caravan park. I will go into more detail later, but just to touch on it a bit here. He, Ron, states that once he came upon the brick building, that he just knew something wasn't right, perceiving at that time that whomever's dog it was had simply went away to the toilet. My question is, what did he see and observe upon entering the kissing gate at the beginning of his walk? Surely we know he saw the phone on the bench, Willow running about on his way back, finishing up his walk after he looped around up the lower field and upper field. But what about when he entered? His account implies that this odd scene that he sees was not thus present upon him starting his journey when he came through the kissing gate. Nicola, if she was even there that morning, which I will get to a bit later, this then suggests she, the phone, Willow, had not yet made it down to the bench area. When Ron first entered, that is. Was she in the upper field when Ron entered? Did he see her? Somewhere along the way, he enters, proceeds to take his walk, as I'll show here. And then the phone, harness, and Willow come down to the bench area, and as Ron's coming back past the brick building, that's when something's just not right. Where were these items in Nicola when Ron walked in? Was she in the upper field coming across the hedge and down? In addition, as I observed on the Armchair Detective Blue, there's your shout out, buddy, the local editor of the Lancashire Evening Post came forward and suggested that Penny, the caravan owner, Ron's brother-in-law, or Ron is the brother-in-law, had in fact called the police initially right at 9:33 a.m. Say what? What? This completely upends the known timeline, puts into question the hour and 17 minutes of missing time. This time gap, we were supposed to believe, that is, before the cops and Paul were first apparently made aware that an alarm regarding Nicholas seemingly having disappeared around 10:50 a.m. was first raised. I'm not saying that she did, but the fact that she's coming forward and, as the editor is saying that's intriguing. Why is it that all these stories, the lady in the red dog briefly interacted with Willow, that's a lie? The police were first called at 10:50. Apparently that's a lie. What's the common thread here, everybody? Peter Falding, I have just learned recently, is being suspended. In fact, he's been removed from the national experts list. Why? What did he do wrong? Was it that he expressed publicly the idea of a decoy, potential involvement of a third party, and that he doubled down that she couldn't have been in the water after she was found? He lost status because he made the police look bad? Now, I understand the stance that maybe he should have worked with the police before publicly speaking, but his expertise skills weren't invalidated, were they? How can we possibly know this yet? If the case is still an inquest, which I will get into great depth a bit later, trust me, you'll want to hear what I have to say there. But how are we to know he was wrong? Have they already behind the scenes closed the case, chalking it up to a drowning? However, want to publicly parade an inquest process to satisfy the public, let the heat simmer down a bit as to the botched police investigation? This can't be. Wouldn't that be a grave miscarriage? I mean, it's not like we haven't seen a scam inquest before. Princess Diana comes to mind. At the initial inquest hearing, Dr. James Adeley, the coroner, stated that there is a need for further evaluation, suggested needing to await availability for the Home Office pathologist. People, the Home Office pathologist is a forensic pathologist. Oh yeah, just wait until I get there. If this is true, what James Adeley said, and the inquest is legit, which it has to be, unless it is all a puppeteering act to satisfy the public, make them believe further inquiry is being done. If this is true, if the inquest is being done sincerely, which, if you take Dr. James Adeley's word for it, and until June, I don't know or see why we shouldn't, then how can Peter Falding's credibility be stripped and that he was wrong? So he, Mr. Falding, lost his status because he then made the Lancashire Constabulary look bad? Something's not right here. It's either that or the inquest is a hoax. They've already closed the case as a drowning and they are merely putting on the inquest as a public ruse to simmer the disdain towards the botched investigation by the police within the constabulary up front. In my opinion, I have faith and trust in Dr. James Adeley. I sincerely do. However, his esteemed status does worry me a little bit. Those with that much rapport and respect tend to be the ones that have privilege to be in control of societal perception levers. I'm not insinuating he is corrupt or that this is going on. I am just baffled as to how Mr. Falding can be stripped. It's either because he was embarrassed or that he embarrassed the police, or they have already determined drowning, thus are axing him due to using him as a scapegoat. Which is it? Given what we know now, believing that the inquest is being done as it should be, you are left with one conclusion. He was cut out because he embarrassed the police. Is this how the College of Policing wants to present themselves? Further, why have the police authorities from the get-go, Superintendent Riley, Senior Investigating Officer Becky Smith, been so defensive of their approach, even threatening this in the public, social media, will face consequences. And they don't want anybody probing or critiquing their investigation. Why?
In the words of the Nobel Prize-winning physicist Percy Williams Bridgman, coincidence is what you have left over after you've applied a bad theory.
Coincidence is what you have left over after you've applied a bad theory. So we all know that there are alternative hypotheses that she didn't go in the river. They do it backwards, they say. We don't have any evidence to prove that, therefore we don't look there. Take a look at Superintendent Riley's answer here early on, a week after Nicola went missing. After the reporter asks her if they have any evidence that she did, in fact, go into the water.
I know earlier in the week you were searching the river for signs that she'd fallen in. Did you find anything? Is there anything to support that hypothesis?
No, not so far. Unfortunately not. That's why I particularly appeal around any clothing that may be matching the description I've given and that could be found, but nothing has been found in the river.
Usually, unpopular to hear that for a lot of people, and that's in terms of speculating that she's been put back in there, because that's not the case. There's no evidence of that at all, and let's wait for the factual evidence that comes out of the test.
There is not a single piece of information or evidence to suggest that there is any third-party involvement in this investigation. And that continues and will continue to do so until we have reviewed all the information received.
As the Nobel Prize-winning physicist expressed, coincidence is what you have left over after you've applied a bad theory. The chief running working hypothesis, if you want to use Superintendent Riley and SIO Becky Smith's words of choice, is and always has been a bad theory. Why? Because although they gently state they remained open-minded, as I have shown ample times in the past content, their work has shown to exhibit anything but. Not considering alternatives until there is evidence of such. Like I've stated, they have it backwards. Investigations should always start with broad, then eliminate, not the other way around. Really think about it. They believe that she, Nicola, fell into the river and did not leave the area. Why? Because that is where she was said to be. That was what the vulnerabilities led them to believe. This is where her phone was left, where Willow and her harness were found. They have no CCTV footage, aside from those ring photos in Inskip. Sure, they may have accounts of her dropping the girls off at school, which I believe is questionable, but after that, Nicola's phone data, tele information, shows that it was left at the bench. This, everyone, is the crux of the working hypothesis. That's it. That is it. Now, if you cannot tell already, I am highly persistent. Had she been found with that first week within the water, then the investigation's approach would have been grounded. Yet, it has remained their absolute smug, concrete commitment, non-wavering, that has had me so fixated. Why? Because there needs to be answers, accountability. Appropriate policing needs to be ensured for communities all across the globe. There are way too many coincidences in this case, which are more and more proven to be and will lead to the truth. They are leaking out and becoming more apparent due to a bad initial theory. Hence, what is the next appropriate move, you might ask?
All truth passes through 3 stages. First, it's ridiculed. Second, it's violently opposed. And third, it's accepted as self-evident. And what this suggests is that we should be very careful about immediately dismissing things as mere coincidence. And it also has important implications for many of the things we experience in our everyday lives. Things we might be tempted to dismiss as just a coincidence.
I look to further show and demonstrate how all these coincidences left after the fact prove that their theory was in fact bad. It is these coincidences that shall in due time be accepted as self-evident. Now, I acknowledge and realize that I spent some focused time on the river Wyre inconsistencies in the last stop, but I'd like to further expand, taking into account new observations, revelations, as would likely be the case and necessity in terms of the investigation at this time. I know a lot of people have suggested and said, oh, they had her body for 2 to 4 days and then they released it to the family. This means it's not a criminal investigation. let it go. Well, I can respectfully respond and say, not so fast. And I'll explain here today. For in order for the coroner and forensic pathologist to come to the conclusion that there was in fact foul play having taken place, they need to break down this very logic as to the scenario and probabilities. With that said, after briefly revisiting the area of the bench and Nicola's last known whereabouts, I then want to move on and discuss Dr. James Adeley, the coroner, a previous throat and neck surgeon, turned now attorney, and further break down what an inquest is, utilizing the College of Policing protocol, discuss why Dr. Adeley initiated opening the inquest investigation, what this means, utilizing what we have been told and shown up until this point, tying it all together with specific regard to Nicola and her case. Now, I realize this idea may not sound like the most interesting, but trust me, give me an opportunity to be heard and I think you'll be glad you did. The flow of decisions, made thus far, are not obvious per se, nor are they clearly demonstrated up until this point, which I tend to demonstrate and present here with you. Further, after doing some digging, the findings are very telling. Of course, I'll show you. Now, to those of you whom are not new here at Mind Juice, you are well aware that I have previously hit on the avenue as to the sister Emma and Paul and their potential involvement. And although these remain strong areas of interest to me, I do want to emphasize that there is a time in this case where who and how they were involved will need to be the absolute focus. However, it is absolutely critical that the facts we know surrounding January 27th in regards to Nicola going missing can without a doubt lead to a rational conclusion that she could not have passed due to her own election or an accident involving the river. Then we move to her being found on the 19th of February. Considering the 23-day time gap in between, to her being examined by the coroner, and then most recently having her body released to the family for funeral proceedings. The matter of fact is, everyone, this case is currently an inquest, under the microscope for further evaluation. Thus, I want to pull the reins back a bit, for I believe shall be the primary focus at this stage, to make sense of everything we have in front of us, which I intend to comprehensively work through with you here today. There will be a time and a place wherein the focus shifts towards who and how. Trust me. I'm already working on it. And I do indeed, again, dabble into a bit here and there in this episode. I just don't want to overlook the absolute importance as to what we have in front of us. As an ever-changing timeline, witness accounts, etc., all need to be scrutinized. Please do stick around for the inquest aspect. I promise it will be well worth it. With that said, let's get into the first phase.
I gave a full statement to the police with the exact time because my wife's telephone call had of the time on it, so but I've given a full statement to the police.
Was it just on the bench, or?
Pardon?
Was it just on the bench?
The phone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you saw Phone, Lead, and Willow, who you knew who Nicola was.
No, I didn't.
Oh, you knew Willow. That was it, wasn't it? You knew you knew Willow.
I knew I'd seen both the owners of Willow walking this dog in the past. But whilst I knew them by face, like I know your face, I didn't know the name. But I got somebody gone to the toilet in the. That would have been my first. I got to about this red brick building here, and I thought this is not right. And then there was a conversation, but my wife was trying to ring me. I was trying to ring her. Penny had rung my wife. To say that she'd fastened the dog up that was.
And Penny was the lady who actually spotted Willow initially and saw the phone, but didn't know what was going on with the phone.
That's right. Yes, it was just a progression of things happening. You know, we found out because of the wallpaper on the phone. We found out who the couple were. Then the school was contacted, and Paul arrived.
All right. I believe that I have some critical observations here in regards to Ron and those at the caravan park that have not yet been discussed or raised. Overall, there is a major red flag in regards to the timing of his walk. Let me explain. I know that most older folk tend to follow their routines like a ritual. That is not a slight at anyone older. Hear me out. For myself, my sleep schedule has been completely upended since January 27th, having been glued to this case from the onset. Living over in the Midwest U.S., St. Michael's is about 6 hours ahead. Hence, my routine's timing has been all over the place the last month. But one thing I do know for certain is that older people in general typically are very strict with their morning and daily routines. For example, waking up, put a kettle of tea on, making some coffee. They then grab the paper, watch the news, walk the dog. Same routines, day after day after day. You get the point. Now, the first key I want to point out, is in the Viewing with Sky News, their special program they did, wherein around the 3-week mark of Nicola going missing, the two hosts went out to the bench area where Nicola was last seen and partook on a walkthrough of what were believed to be her movements that morning, attempting to stay as close to the actual timeline as possible. This is where we witnessed them crossing Ron at approximately 9:10 a.m. With that said, I kept track of his walk length and timed it, as we see him enter the screen before the interview, just prior to the red brick building, headed out towards the upper field area, having just entered through the kissing gate to begin his walk. I will show you here. I have circled the timestamps as to when he approximately enters, then approximately leaves. In this program, he approximately enters at 2:12:26 and he approximately exits at 2:26:26. That is a 14-minute walk time and routine wherein he enters the kissing gate, completes his walk, and then leaves the kissing gate. This is where things get hairy. Shall I say? Follow me. We have contradictory time frame and timeline issues here. If Ron is a strict schedule man, that is, typically conducts his walk around the same time every day, and likewise did that very same routine this day, as the Sky News interview, we witness that he crosses the host at approximately 9:10 a.m. Then we see him leave at approximately 9:20 a.m., which we know are not exactly representing 9:10 and 9:20, as they are general headings on the program, to give everyone an idea as to where Nicola was and when. I know this may sound confusing, but the only part that matters is that we see that his walk is approximately timed at 14 minutes, approximately. Hence, had he taken his routine walk at this same time the day Nicola went missing, this suggests that he enters at the kissing gate at around 9:08 or 9:10 a.m., then concludes his walk at 9:22 to 9:24 a.m., right? However, if we go by the official police statement and their timeline, we know that he was suggested to have come upon the bench, recognizing something wasn't right while approaching the brick building, at what we know as 9:33 a.m. In this scenario, using this approximate walk time that I presented to you earlier, this would put him entering the kissing gate at approximately 9:19, 9:20 a.m. That's right, when Nicola's phone was suspected to have been moved to the bench. Now, I know this may be confusing, and I've tried everything to make my thoughts as clear as possible here. So, the question is, when did Ron actually take his walk that day? Either scenario, he was in the vicinity, walking area, between 9:08 a.m. and 9:22 a.m., given the 14-minute estimation of his walk, or from 9:20 a.m. to 9:33 a.m., both of which put Ron around and or near the bench and kissing gate exactly at or around 9:20 a.m. The time suspected to be Nicola's phone was moved to the bench via phone and cell tower information. Let's pause with this in mind, taking into account the other known timeline events surrounding this interval. Nicola was reported to have last been seen and witnessed in the upper field approximately 9:10 a.m. by whom we believe to be the old man with the white dog. Now, I'm going to insert a believed to be photo of this subject of which I have used from the Armchair Detective Blues channel, which he has done some great work. It is this old man with the white dog whom also supposedly saw Penny, the caravan park owner, Ron's sister-in-law, tie Willow up, which is odd if you really think about it. How can the old man with the white dog be the last witness to see Nicola in the upper field around 9-10 a.m., and then be the one whom witnessed Penny tie Willow to the bench? If he did witness both, then how did he miss what happened to Nicola in between 9-10 a.m. and 9:20 a.m., 9:33 a.m., and then when Willow was tied up, if still in position to witness both? Now, two quick aspects of the Ron interview I want to quickly show you, then further discuss with respect to everything said thus far. Here we go.
I remember you actually telling me when you saw the phone, the lead and Willow, you were like, okay, I'm going to keep an eye on it because something doesn't feel right.
I thought somebody had gone to the toilet in the... that would have been my first. I got to about this red brick building here, and I thought this is not right. And but then there was a conversation. But my wife was trying to ring me. I was trying to ring her. Penny had rung my wife.
Yeah.
To say that she'd fastened the dog up that was.
And Penny was the lady who actually spotted Willow initially,
yes.
And saw the phone, but didn't know what was going on with the phone.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah. And then after that, what happened?
Well,
what were the next steps?
Then it was just a progression of things happening. We found out because of the wallpaper on the phone. We found out who the couple were. Then the school was contacted and Paul arrived.
Yeah.
As you hear the host say there to Ron, I remember you telling me that when you first saw the phone and lead, something didn't feel right. This is the point I want to clarify. Ron says, I thought somebody went to the toilet. This here suggests, I believe, shows that Ron saw the phone and lead upon initially entering the kissing gate near the bench when he first started his walk, which we know would have been either 9:20 a.m. if the police timeline of these events is accurate. Hence, he then completes his walk 13 to 14 minutes later. And upon finishing his walk, he approaches the red brick building back towards the bench around 9:33 a.m. Wherein at this point, he then suggests, first he sees the lead and Willow and thinks, someone must have went to the toilet. Proceeds on his 13-14 minute walk. Then as he's coming back and looping back around, approaching the red brick building, he looks up, notices that these Willow and the lead and the phone are still there. Then that was my first, I got to about this red brick building here, and I thought, this doesn't feel right. Then there was a conversation, he hand gestures, between my wife, Penny, whom are sisters, everybody. Penny had rung my wife stating, you should fasten the dog up. So, I think by breaking that down there, he first recognizes that Willow and the phone are there. He thinks to himself, someone must have went to the toilet. Proceeds to continue his walk for that 13 to 14 minutes. As he's on his way back, approaching the red brick building, he then at that point recognizes something doesn't feel right? So, given Ron's interview, estimated time of walk, he first walks through the kissing gate at 9:20 a.m., witnesses the phone and Willow, thinking someone has went to the toilet, then continues on the walk. 13 to 14 minutes later, upon coming to the red brick building, he recognizes the phone and Willow are still in the same place they were when he entered around 9:20 a.m., where he acknowledges thinking something doesn't feel right, which makes sense. Why would the phone and Willow still be in the same position 14 minutes later? It wouldn't take someone that long to go to the toilet. And even if it did, someone wouldn't likely let their dog or phone alone for that length of time if they anticipated their bathroom stop lasting that long. You get the point. Then you hear the host suggest Penny was actually the lady who first spotted Willow and the phone initially, but didn't know quite what was going on. And then you hear Ron say, yes, that's right. Then Ron states, then it was a progression of things happening. We found out who the couple were, the school was contacted, then Paul arrived. Now, again, referring to the armchair detective, whom had apparently found the location where the old man with the white dog are pictured to instead be near the caravan park, not the upper field, If this is accurate, how was he the last witness to see Nicola in the upper field at 9:10 a.m., then witness Penny tie Willow up at 9:33 a.m.? Apparently, he thus then moved from the upper field towards the caravan park, right? I mean, if he lives in Rowan Water, this would make sense. He's moving from Rowan Water, the upper field, down towards the caravan park, and then would eventually make his way back towards Rowan Waters, right? So he would be able to see Nicola both in the upper field and then see further Penny tie Willow up. How does this make sense? How does he not see Nicola then? Penny states that she never saw Nicola. How then could he not have possibly witnessed where Nicola went after 9:10 a.m.? Or her phone moving to the bench at 9:20 a.m. as the phone data suggests? In addition, Ron was walking in the field between 9:20 and 9:33 a.m. How did the old man with the white dog and Ron both not see what happened between Nicola's last reported sighting at 9:10 a.m. and the phone moving to the bench at 9:20? Further, amidst these two men's presence, Penny just apparently happened to notice Willow running off lead and proceeded to head over to the field and tie Willow up. Yet she didn't see Nicola. But she proceeds to have a conversation with the old man with the white dog, who states that he did see her at 9:10 a.m. It doesn't make sense. There's something suspicious here. Again, I'm not saying these people are at fault, but there is mix-up in their stories. Ron, Penny, old man with white dog. I'm leaning more towards old man with white dog. And remember, one of the family members who talked to Grizzly True Crime stated that Willow alerted that day to in the upper field, not the kissing bench, the upper field, and then again the same spot the next day, the upper field. This is where the old man with the white dog said that he saw Nicola. That's where Willow alerted, right? Here, to further elaborate on this anomaly, I want to use our friend here, if I can say that, Armchair Detective, because I like his reasoning of some great points from early on reports regarding these subjects.
BS. And if I can prove it to you, you will wake up and understand this whole case is rubbish. Tuesday, the 31st of January. On Tuesday, a spokesman for Lancashire Police said they are keen to find a man believed to have been in the area at the time Mrs. Bulley was seen. Oh, Miss Bulley. That's not Ron. That's the 70-year-old man with a white dog. Don't confuse that with Ron, whose real name is something else. I don't know that, though, because I've not been following the case very long. So he's described as being age 70, white, 6 foot, well built, and walking a small, fluffy white dog. He spoke to a woman in the area who found Mrs. Bulley's dog, Penny. You now have, yet again, the matriarch Penny interjected into the case. She now can say, yeah, I spoke to Penny. But Penny says she didn't see Nicola Bulley. But she managed to see the 70-year-old man who did see Nicola and 2 other people. This is the police. The 70-year-old man spoke to Penny before he walked in the direction of Rowan Water. We ask anybody who thinks they may have any information to come forward with inquiries. Now, the 17-year-old man's wife spoke to the Times, no less. Let's go to somewhere reputable to tell our lies. And she relayed what her husband saw that morning. So why don't the police relay what her husband saw that morning? Why are we left with a woman coming forward to the Times to relay secondhand what her husband saw that morning? Why haven't we got a police conference with Paul sat there, her mum and dad sat there, and the police saying, we have some fantastic evidence here. A 70-year-old man spoke to us, and this is what he saw. No, they relay it through a newspaper. It couldn't be much more, obviously, miss more information than if it tried. You've got an alleged CCTV picture of a 70-year-old man walking down the lane that leads from the River Walk to Garstang Lane. The police say it was issued on the day of her disappearance. So what did the wife say? Statement from the Times, 1st of February. The last person seen Nicola Bulley before she vanished has spoken out through his wife. Now, the wife of the potentially key witness, who was tracked down by police investigating the dog walker's disappearance in Lancaster last Friday, have addressed her demeanour before she vanished. Her husband says, in the field, there were about 3 people. How can there be about 3 people? There's 3 people or there's not. But anyway, there's about 3 people, he says, including my husband. So there's the 70-year-old man and 2 others. We presume would be Penny and Nicola Bulley, right? About 3 people, because Penny said that she saw this man, right? So how come Penny hasn't seen Nicola? Let that sink in.
Armchair Detective here raises some good points. Via early newspaper reporting, I want to address a little bit further. The only aspect I didn't like in his piece was the Chicago Bulls hat. Have to get yourself a Lakers lid there, buddy. I'm just kidding. All in fun. All right, continuing on. Her husband says, this is the wife of the old man with the white dog, that there were about 3 people in the field, including my husband. Now, we hear Armchair suggest it would likely thus be Penny and Nicola, right? Given that Penny was the one who tied the dog up. However, if we consider the analysis we just did on Ron and his walking time, first thinking someone went to the toilet upon entering, then recognizing something was off 13 to 14 minutes later, Penny calling his sister at this point, this 3 people, including her husband, would then be the old man with the white dog, Ron, and Nicola. Yet, Penny is calling all of these people, the vet, her sister, Ron, etc. However, we were supposed to believe she simply tied Willow up and then proceeded to go to an appointment because she was running late. Bullshit. I'm not going to go so far and claim that one of these 3 is responsible, but their stories don't line up and make sense. The old man with the white dog is mysterious, speaking through his wife, seemingly cordial enough to have a conversation with Penny, was said to be the last known witness of Nicola at 9:10 a.m. And further, it is learned that he did witness Penny tie Willow up at 9:33 a.m., but he didn't say anything in between. Penny notices Willow off the lead, ties him up, talks with the old man with the white dog near their caravan park. Ron, there in the field right around 9:20 a.m., entering, if you consider our analysis and simply suggest she may have went to the toilet, pointing up and into the caravan park. He is awfully standoffish, yes, and not a fan of the camera. He only faces it directly, briefly for a second or 2. Her phone, Nicola's, was placed on the bench at 9:20 a.m. per phone data. I would suggest this is pretty close to accurate. It would be hard to manipulate the phone's GPS coordinates. This is when Ron is entering through the kissing gate, later suggesting that he assumed she was going to the toilet. Remember, Willow is observed running between the bench and the kissing gate, as I believe this is where Nicola or whomever was there last with Willow and the phone left Willow, not the river's edge. Nicola, then through deductive reasoning, using in tandem with Ron's suggestion, did likely go up and through the private caravan lane. Remember, Willow alerted in the upper field per the old man. I don't know how much you can trust his word at this point. And further again the next day with family and friends in that same area. And again, the last sighting was at 9:10 a.m. by the old man with the white dog in the upper field. Willow was seen pacing the kissing gate and bench by Penny. Ron suggests she went to the toilet pointing up through the caravan park. Old man with the white dog, his wife, suggests 3 people including my husband and then we suggest Nicola and Ron. Here, in my opinion, is where understanding may begin to evolve. There were early reports via the Lancashire Evening Post, as the armchair detective covered, wherein Penny allegedly stated to have called the police right at 9:33 a.m., which was scrubbed, and the articles pertaining to such were changed by February 15th. Instead, planning the narrative and changing it to Paul first contacting them at 10:50 a.m. In my opinion, the police are likely covering their own ass here, for if they did receive a call at 9:33 a.m., the call about a wandering dog and a phone being left all alone, they likely took it as nothing serious. Hence, it was not until 10:50 a.m. when Paul called with concern they figured out, oh shit, this is more serious. Because in the meantime, Penny and Ron and Old Man with the White Dog are calling other people, trying to figure out whose dog it is, you know. The police have been trying to cover up their failed attempt towards this case from step one. Further, I would suspect that potentially Paul suggested the vulnerabilities in the January 10th incident, and further, Penny may have even stated that she heard someone fall in or a splash, etc., which together would then have the police so transfixed on the water hypothesis. It makes sense. Only thing is, Nicola went into the water initially, and I will show you here in the next segment with absolute proof, this was all a misdirect. She either left through the caravan park private lane or through the Rowan water area, concealed, taken vehicle by someone. Ron, the old man with the white dog, Penny, one of these knows more than they are saying. Ron has been forward, I guess. Penny a bit fumbling her words here and there, can't keep everything straight. But the old man with the white dog has been as sketchy, non-existent as it gets. He saw her at 9:10 a.m., then proceeded to talk to Penny, witnessing her tie Willow up. Did he take her up in the upper field, where Willow alerted, keep her concealed, and then return to the field to carry out his walk? Talk to Penny, Ron, to act as though he had no clue, then later returning, dealing with Nicola? Now, I'm not directly pointing fingers at any one of these directly, but after I further analyzed Ron's route and timing, mixed it with Penny's and Old Man with the White Dog's accounts, observing the armchair show, these thoughts, perspectives began to come. I think we are getting closer. As far as the police, I believe in scrubbing this and that, projecting that the lady in red saw Nicola, their dogs briefly interacted, having the editor change her story that the police were not contacted by Penny at 9:33, but in fact it was Paul at 10:50 a.m., is furthermore the same as them being so defensive in their press conferences, revealing her vulnerabilities. They knew they screwed up and have been trying to cover themselves from the very first step, which, for Nicola's sake, is sad and is not good. Police trying to patch their own mistakes, meanwhile not paying attention to the actual details they need to solve the damn thing. Now, they did turn themselves into the watchdog, also bringing attention from the Shadow Secretary and the Prime Minister himself as to their actions. The College of Policing sweeping in to further investigate. They botched it.
So again, I wasn't massively concerned or anything. Then it got to 10:30, and that's when I thought, she's, quite late now, more late than usual. So I tried ringing her phone, and there was no answer. I tried ringing her on WhatsApp, and again there was no answer. So I tried the mobile again, and no answer. So I couldn't get her. I started to get a bit panicky, I think. So
what I can say, which we've established only yesterday, was that if Nicola had left out of the river path and turned right, she has not reached the Great Pub. And we can say that because we have CCTV covering both sides of that pavement. Lastly, there has been some mention of CCTV specifically at the caravan sites that hasn't been working and that's suspicious itself. That is not the case. We have been helped and assisted beyond all belief by the caravan owners.
And then after that, what happened?
Well,
what were the next steps?
It was just a progression of things happening. We found out because of the wallpaper on the phone, we found out who the couple were, then the school was contacted and Paul arrived.
Well, look, we'll let you carry on with your walk. I know you do this every morning.
Yes.
Nicola did this almost every morning as well.
Probably, yeah.
We retrace.
Now, last note on what we just covered. Ron and those associated, Penny, the old man with the white dog. As you hear in those last clips, Paul, he states that he called her, Nicola, at 10:30 multiple times. Her phone, WhatsApp, then back to her phone. Considering Ron's account, they would have likely observed these attempts, right? Further, you hear Becky Smith state how helpful the Caravan people were. And further, she mentions that had Nicola left through the towpath, she didn't make it to the Grapes pub, for she would then have been seen, which implies she could have disappeared within the Caravan Park, right? And if we continue on with misinformation and the changing of narratives, which seem like an awful plenty, in the early Lancashire Post reporting towards the end of January, Paul initially reported and stated that he received a call from the school regarding that somebody had found Willow and Nikki's phone and the dog harness on the bench. So, if this interaction was in fact the truth, as Paul initially suggested, why did that narrative change for we then later observe Paul suggesting it to be found on the ground between the river's edge and the bench? Is it just a case of mistake, accident? I don't know. Nicola was last sighted at 9:10 a.m., supposedly by the old man with the white dog, which I hardly give his account any sliver of credibility now. I was suspicious of this cat in my very first piece on the case, if you recall. Anyways, at 9:20 a.m., her phone is placed on the bench. I don't believe it was Nicola herself. Something had already taken place. The 9:33 a.m., Penny finding Willow, she was going to be late for an appointment, was likely bullshit. Thus, the hour and 17 minutes that took place until 10:50 a.m., when Paul arrived and the police were called, whomever was there responsible concocted their cover story. When they saw Paul trying to call through at 10:30 a.m., as he suggests, they began to panic. And instead of calling him, answering him directly, Penny maybe called her daughter-in-law, whom works at the school, who then called Paul. There was likely a disconnect in the narrative here, where Penny initially told her daughter-in-law the harness and phone were all found on the bench. However, by the time Paul got there, the harness was strewn to make it look like she fell in. Ron states it was a progression of things. The wallpaper, the school was called, then Paul arrived, etc. How didn't he and they see Paul ringing through? Further, we know the tele number was on Willow's collar. It's because they didn't want to contact anyone connected, per se, right off the bat because they hadn't covered the tracks yet. The host of Sky News acknowledges to Ron that he does this walk every morning, which he confirms. Ron, that is. Further, the host then suggests to Ron that Nicola does this as well, of which Ron responds to stating, "Yeah, probably." Come on, man. Probably? If she does, and if you know, you know. So who placed the items there? Ron? I mean, he does later, as we see put himself there, confesses to picking up the phone, looking at the wallpaper. If he did have something to do with it, which I would never assume alone, for likely Penny and or the old man with the white dog would likely be an accomplice, it would benefit him to justify his prints and presence near the bench, witnessing the phone. Again, I'm not directly alleging he precisely is responsible for what happened, but his behavior is awfully off-putting. Now, considering the anomalies in the change of reporting misdirection surrounding the 9:33 a.m. time frame. Further, I know Paul had a business residence there within the caravan park that is, I guess, important not to dismiss for what it's worth. In my opinion, Penny likely suggested hearing or even observing something, which, coupled with Paul's reference to her vulnerabilities, January 10th incident led police to be fixed on the river. It appears that if this route does have the answers, the caravan park, these three individuals we've discussed for the last bit, the police, of course, have been fooled. Let's take a quick glance at this article and then we'll move on. Nicola Bulley police force blasted by Watchdogs 3 months before she vanished. The police force criticized over the Nicola Bulley investigation was blasted by Watchdogs 3 months before she vanished. 3 months, so October, November. Her Majesty's Inspector of Constabulary found Lancashire Constabulary requirements improvement at investigating crime. They added the force was not always carrying out thorough and timely investigations and that victims aren't always updated on progress. Lancashire Police now faces 3 external inquiries over the 23-day search of mum of 2 Nicola 45 in St. Michael's on Wyre. The Independent Office for Police Conduct is probing a welfare visit to the family home made by an officer 2 weeks earlier. And training and police body of the College of Policing will examine both the hunt and the decision to release information about an alcohol issue triggered by the menopause. Nicola was found on Sunday a mile downstream from where she is thought to have fallen in. The annual HMIC inspection, which found a lack of effective supervision, marked the force in 8 areas, and it failed to be ranked outstanding in any of these 8. Lancashire Police said at the time, "We are graded as good in 6 areas, and where any areas for improvement were identified, work is already under the way to address these." Topic, but this one has a detective I want to point out. The Independent Office for Police Conduct is probing one officer's welfare visit to the family home 2 weeks prior. Former Detective Martin Underhill, who investigated dozens of murders, including the Sarah Payne case in 2000, said nothing less than an independent review is needed into how the investigation was conducted. These are crucial issues that go to public confidence. Mr. Underhill, who now lectures on investigation techniques, told The Times, "I may well be totally wrong and Lancashire might be completely vindicated, but I have never known a force to be so reluctant to seek external help. The Met and other forces all offered. The Home Secretary must get to the bottom of it. Lancashire Police failed to be ranked outstanding in any of these 8 areas it was assessed by the annual inspection. It was marked as adequate for responding to the public and requires improvement for investigating crime." Speaking at the time, the force said, "We are graded as good in 6 areas, and where any areas of improvement were identified, work is already underway to address these." They didn't get very far. Separately in the investigation, a specialist diver involved in the search of Mr. Bulley has reportedly been removed from the National Crime Agency's list of experts. This is Mr. Falding, and that's corrupt in my opinion.
And river search teams plus dogs, and Nicola has not been found. We searched that part of the river, the lower part of the river, for just 4 hours. And I can categorically say that from our sonar footage, which I've since reviewed, Nicola was not laying on the riverbed. Yes, we did, Dan. We trawled like the police every day with our sonar. They did with their sonar, and there was no sign of Nicola on the under the water, I should say, not in the reeds. Our remit was not searching the riverbank or the reeds. I'll make that clear. So we ran the sonar down on day 1, down about 2 or 3 miles down that river, and we never saw no sign of Nicola, as did the police for the last 3 weeks with their sonar device either. And what I do find strange is that she hasn't gone very far. If I would have expected her to go further in 3 weeks than she did, literally a few hundred yards just down the stream from the weir. That's what's got to me.
Now, although I did touch on and demonstrate this very aspect here in the last episode, River Wyre inconsistencies, I have come across advancements in my knowledge and understanding that I want to implement. Better yet, prove that there is no way she went into the water where she was said and known to be last. That is, near the bench area. As covered previously, we can recall that considering the temperature and surrounding environment being rather cold and it being winter season, it would take someone approximately 5 to 8 days to surface upon passing away. That is, having died in the water. So, if Nicola had slipped in, was pushed in, or succumbed to her own fate, below the bench wherein Willow harness and the foam were found, as Mr. Falding suggested, she would have been found before the weir, within that first week or so. Surely after decomposition had set in, her body was expected to come afloat to the surface. She would have been found. Which, had their initial theory, the police's, that is, been accurate, and the water was her end, from the River Wyre, that is. I want to be clear there. Water from the River Wyre. She would have been found. This story would have likely never caught the traction and wide scale that it did. In regard specifically to the weir, we know that it is approximately 315 meters away from the bench entry position. Just to provide further insight, I did do some checking, and although Olympic female swimmers do not time or run an event at 300 meters exactly, they do run a 200 meter freestyle and a 400 meter freestyle. Let me share that the female world record holder for the 200 meter freestyle comes in at 1 minute and 52 seconds. An Olympic world record holder wearing a swim cap and a one-piece suit with a mission for speed time. Hence, if Nicola had fell in, was pushed, was drowning, which takes approximately 30 to 60 seconds, heck, even say 90 seconds, considering the cold water, due to the body experiencing negative affect breathing reflexes, she couldn't have possibly gotten anywhere near the weir. If she were anywhere before the weir, even going in near the secret beach up by Rowan Waters, she would have eventually have waded down towards the bench area. And again, anywhere before the weir, she would have been found. Period. Moving on. We then know that she would have had to have come afloat to make it over the weir, which would not have taken place until after day 5 to 8, needing to come afloat first. Now, in my opinion, this didn't and couldn't have happened, but for the purposes of proving the case, let's presume somehow, miraculously, by happenstance of nature or chance, she did crest the weir. I have went ahead and tracked down the river Wyre at St. Michael's water measurements, which fortunately are registered and tracked right there at the bottom of the weir, as you can see pinned on the map here. Now, an important thing to keep in mind here for the rest of the distance to where she was found, this measurement is solely for this location and likewise does not represent the depth further down. However, taking into account this water is all tidal after the weir, the fluctuation in levels here at the weir would likewise reflect in parallel the ideas of rising and dropping at each point of interest down the rest of the river. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so if it's 0.45 meters right there at the bottom of the weir, but it's 7 meters by where she was found. I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying for example. And let's say below the weir, it rises to 0.50. You can expect at a depth of 7 meters, it to rise the exact interval as it did below the weir. I hope that makes sense. Okay. I.e., if it raises 0.2 meters at the weir, it would likewise raise 0.2 meters a half mile downstream. You get the point. If we then take a look at the 23-day timeline wherein Nicola disappeared, the 27th of January to the 19th of February when she was found, we can then see that the water levels are pretty static, remaining considerably low for the first 21 days after she went missing. After the weir, averaging about 1.5 feet deep for my American brain. Side note, if she did crest the weir, which we know it would first take her 5 to 8 days to float before going over, take a look at this. The water levels immediately after the weir, during the stretch, considering such show between approximately 0.45 and 0.48 meters, again, for my American brain to understand, this is just over 1.5 feet deep. With that said, take a look at these shots. Take a glance at the rocks and shallows sticking up can be seen as the water rushes through them by them just after the weir. You're going to tell me that per understanding what it would take, how long it would have been before she floated, then somehow defied logic and crested the weir, that she then somehow overcame these shallows in 0.45 to 0.48 or 1.5 feet depth of water? I know some people suggest it could have happened in the dead of night. No one would have seen her. Yo, I don't care when it happened. It didn't. If she was ever in that water below the bench and somehow by the grace of God was miraculously able to crest the weir, she would have been halted by those rocks you see in the shallow, in the depth of the water, given the readings on those dates. That's not my opinion. That's logic and rationale using the science of biology and the actual registered measurements on those given days wherein such would have had to have happened. Further, like I have previously stated, she would have then had to remain afloat for the remainder of her journey to where she was found. That's where a lot of people are misinterpreting this. For her to go in below the bench, it would have to be after she came afloat that she was then able to crest the weir. We know she couldn't have swam there in those waters. It would have been impossible. Thus, even if somehow this happened, this implies that is overcoming the weir. This then implies she was floating. There is no going under the weir. It is a cement concrete structure. The only way through is up and over. Hence, she was afloat and had to have remained such. So, there would not be any she was snagged under the water on underbrush along the side of the bank. She would have already been afloat, then somehow making her way through the various bends and turns for the rest of the 0.89 meters of a mile to where she was eventually found. And I'll explain, let me get there, in the underbrush and reeds. Using what we know as to her recovery, she was found amongst the reeds and undergrowth, right? People, let's take a look again at the water levels. They hardly fluctuate at all to a considerable degree within the first 21 days. Take a look. Understanding that she would have been afloat, ask yourself, how then does she get up into the reeds and undergrowth without the water level raising or dropping to a considerable degree in the first 21 days? In all sincerity, these are not White River rapids that would throw her into such. And for lack of a better way to describe it, she does not surpass a jet stream or a whale blowhole that would cast her up and onto the bank. Not to be disrespectful, but think about it. Right? Just like a stick in the water, she's floating along. Obviously, that's not meant to be degrading. I'm asking you to sincerely think about it. How does one get up then into the reeds and undergrowth once already afloat without the water levels dropping or raising to a significant degree in the first 21 days? I'll tell you. The only way someone gets into the reeds or amongst the undergrowth, out of the water per se, is they are amongst the edge of the water and bank line, and at some point the river level drops or raises to a considerable degree. Thus, then and only then would she be left amongst the reeds naturally. So, if the water level, let's say, raises 2 feet, right? And then over the next couple of days it drops, her being along the bank and water line of that, when it's up that 2 feet, as that drops, she would remain on the edge and lay in the reeds from where the water used to be. Okay, that's the only way you get up into the reeds. Does that make sense? I hope it does. It's not possible for her to be cast out of the water into the reeds. Remember, she's already afloat and could not float to go over the weir and then sink again. Said decomposition process, the final sinking would not have taken place for months and months. 100% without a doubt, not within the first 23 days. If she still wasn't found to this very day, she would still be afloat. Not to sound morbid or disrespectful, just trying to drill home the point. Let me demonstrate. Alright, this may be a little boring, but hear me out because it's important. So, you can see here is the official page, the daily measures of the current river level, as well as the logging of the daily average river flow at the river Wyre at St. Michael's. Further, as I previously showed, you can tell this measurement point is taken daily, at or just past the weir, as signaled on the image present here. Next, here I have targeted in the long-term chart to highlight the measurements between January 27th when she went missing, all the way through and up to February 19th when she was found. As you can tell, the water levels hardly waver throughout the first 20 to 22 days. This is the reading for the 27th. As you can see, there's a measurement of 0.46 meters, which is, for my American brain, about 1.5 feet. Then here is the reading for the 19th, which is 0.51 meters. However, as you can see in the long-term chart, over the span of the 23 days, there is one small uptick, shall we call it, if it's even that. So for the first 22 days, the water lingered consistently around and in between 0.36 meters and 0.5 meters, about 1 foot and 1.5 feet. Again, at this location below the Wyre specifically, however, the rates of change would likely be consistent downstream, respective to their depth at that point. Now, on the 17th, we notice it moved to 0.5 meters, which isn't that extreme, for there are multiple times throughout the span the level reached 0.46, 0.48, and even 0.5 meters earlier on. So nothing significant here. On the 18th, however, we see the highest mark over the entire 23-day span, coming in at 0.75 meters. So for clarity, in this area, the river level was averaging about 1.3 feet respectively. However, on the 18th, it rose to about 2.5 foot, so almost double. So we can safely say that the river remained static for the first 22 days until the 19th, wherein it then raised about 1 foot approximately, or the 18th. Then receded back down to the average, 1.5, 1.6 foot on the 19th, the day she was found. So, like I suggested previously, the only way Nicola would naturally come up and onto the reeds would be as a result of her floating along the bank or ridge and then experiencing a considerable drop in the water level, allowing her to remain along the edge or side. As the water recedes, she then becomes, let's say, a fish out of water, so to speak. I hope that makes sense. But rationally speaking, this is still not plausible, for then this would imply she was afloat prior to the 18th and was never seen. I'll show you here. Just to demonstrate here. So she's floating this way, down from the bench area, which she would have came, or if she was up this way, and like Falding says, the spring tides, move things back, kind of like he discusses the dead sheep, always come back to the same place. She's going to be on the top, right? If she were to be on the reeds here, okay, or we use this side, right? Because it is odd, Jason, if we look in the picture, he's like standing right here and he's like pointing, like almost like a cross, and we can't trust the narrative. I mean, come on, the things change left and right, day to day, week to week. So in order for her to, like, let's say, rest right here, the water level is going to have to be up here at some point, right? She's along the edge. Then as it drops down to where it is, she remains here, like I had explained. That's the only way she gets up there. Nothing's going to push her up. There's no forceful flow. And likewise, here, this water level here is low enough to where she may be able to float right on in under there. And then it raises, it would lodge or stick her in there. But again, if that were the case, she would have been seen coming in this way or floating back in this way, right? Like Falding says, I'd expected her to go further than that. Further, we are not 100% certain where Nicola was found or how, yet it appears she was somehow within the reeds or undergrowth, as reported as the final finding here. Also, I can't let this slip, taking into account the psychic's cryptic words, such as it would be inappropriate for me to discuss in any further detail anything we may know about that body at this time. Then he goes on to say, as a final note, I will not be giving any further information or commentary at this time regarding the work involved in finding this person, nor is it my place to engage in any discussion on how the body came to originally be in the water. Very odd way of not saying much, I guess. Inappropriate to discuss any further detail anything we may know about the body, and how the body came to be originally in the water. In fact, it is really hard to discern where and how Nicola was found. I am highly skeptical of the reporting switching of narratives, like I've said. That, and considering Jason's words, although again not revealing too much, to me they do indeed say something. Why is he so adamant to outline the topic area with how the body came to originally be in the water, and further, cannot discuss anything we may know about that body? It's almost as if he does know something in regards to how, and further detail regarding his sighting, which to me is really intriguing. For if you simply found a drowning victim, I doubt you would go to the extent of outlining your words in regards to the topic area as I have suggested. Then again, that could just be my brain overanalyzing, but I'd bargain not. Further, if you recall the recovery team, they are seen using ropes. I know they're likely attached to the divers, but it's still interesting. If they're looking for, other evidence or clothing, I don't know. And further, Jason pointing in that picture, to me, his focus of direction when he's pointing is not the bush area where everybody believes she was found. It appears he is pointing either over and across or beyond the bush, meaning on the other side of it. It's not like he's pointing right in front of him. Like the bush is right there and his arm is extended out and over past. To me, it's not the bush. Interesting. So I went back and watched the recovery. I have it saved, and I noticed that the two individuals removing are approximately 4 to 5 feet to the left of the infamous red-circled bush, pulling in from across. Now, I thought about screenshotting and blurring out what needed to be and showing you so you have an idea of what I'm talking about, but I just can't muster up the gold to do it. I'm sorry. But just trust me. Or if you have it, go look at it. Then, as I sat here and studied other film, side note, thank you, Curtis Media. Your footage has been a real blessing for this case. I don't think I could have gotten this far without your assistance. So, you noticed almost directly parallel to the infamous bush across the water appears to be a bunch of branches and reeds, not rooted in the ground, yet appear to be more like a cover or a makeshift camouflage. Look for yourself. Here. So, I think to myself, after everything I just said, was she across the way, covered by this, which, by the way, I want to make clear, is not natural? It has clearly been moved there. Is this why Jason suggested how it may have went in, or won't discuss any further? Was it intentionally concealed? Yes, eventually she would have been found, most likely after decomposing further, for the perp's sake. Take a look and make up your mind for yourself. I just wanted to share. Now, like I have reiterated 1,000 times, she couldn't have possibly went in below the bench, where it was believed initially that she did, or projected, I should say. Further, even if she leaves under her own accord, leaving Willow at the gate, and she ventures walking beyond the weir and enters at some point, she would have sunk, then likely went a lot further downstream, even considering the tides. Remember, Faulding found it odd, if considering the bench location, she didn't make it that far from where she was found, only 0.89 miles. Yet, if we consider her leaving Willow, which she wouldn't do, I don't believe, then walking and entering somewhere further down, she would have then advanced an additional 500 to 1,000 meters down the towpath. There's no way she would have been found. She wouldn't have been found initially. She would have went further downstream. Further, look at this bridge here. Imagine if she had floated left. She's stuck. So, just toss another coincidence on the pile. She fell in below the bench, miraculously overcame the weir after 5 to 8 days, wasn't seen, then just so happened to venture right as opposed to left. Come on, everyone. At some point, the coincidences have to max out. Right? Now that we got that squared away, I believe it is proven she could not have possibly been in the water, in the river Wyre, that is, throughout the duration of her being missing. Let's consider and focus on another aspect of the environment, briefly, which is where I would like to shout out Eddie's vinyl for his observation, or at least this is where I first heard of the find or anyone pointing it out. The vehicle lay-by. So, not only after everything I have discussed this far does it seem unlikely we present ourselves with yet another coincidence. She was found in the reeds and undergrowth, which was immediately parallel to a road. The spot closest in proximity, might I add, along the entire River Wyre stretch, out into the bay. Morecambe Bay? I hope I got it right that time. Which just so happens to also include a vehicle lay-by. It must be a coincidence again. It's possible, right? Yeah. I think not. I guess if you're still on the she miraculously crested the Wyre, remained afloat for the entirety of her journey down the river, somehow not seen, observed by anyone, despite the hundreds of searchers and experts, she then by chance went right at the bridge instead of left, continued on to weave through 4 and 5 bends, albeit in very shallow water, missing all other brush, then stopped at the infamous tree area, which so happened to be immediately parallel to an area in closest proximity to the road and further, the only spot with a vehicle lay-by. Remember, everybody, coincidence is the result of a bad theory. Like Eddie Vinyl suggested, I bet someone, whoever, pulled into the lay-by in the dead of night, carried her out up and over the wall, and then discarded her down towards that brush. After the investigation shifted away from the water. That is rationale. That is not a coincidence. It is pressing the logic, truth to an extent to wherein they will eventually accept it as self-evident. Now, what bothers me beyond all belief, as I did happen to see the body recovered before it was taken down, there were 2 men involved in this recovery who were very seemingly unprofessional. You could see they struggled for approximately 15 to 20 minutes, sitting down for a time, then standing up and proceeding to move things here or there, struggling to make any progress, then sitting down, then moving a little, slipping, moving. Wouldn't you think the police would have learned their lesson at this point? You know, from the first time, maybe take it a little bit more serious? Apparently not. No crime scene cordon. Don't even get me started. I don't even know what to say other than repeat their annual inspection review, in need of improvement, regarding their crime investigation tactics. Couldn't be further from the truth. And it's fair to say they haven't made any progress. Let us move on to the final stretch in this episode, the Inquest, which I find to be rather telling. But first, I'd like to present a channel announcement as a little break. Quick community side note I'd like to make. Thank you to all of the new subscribers whom have joined as of late, and further, I'd like to express my gratitude and appreciation also to those of you who have been around for a while. The community discussion engagement has been absolutely outstanding. Thank you. It's great to see positive, constructive conversations taking place. It helps all of us think, challenge ourselves critically. With that said, I'd like to take this time to unveil the rolling out or opening of the channel's memberships, which are accessible by selecting the Join tab below the video and or on the channel homepage itself. I will have activated this option at the release of this content. There is absolutely no pressure to join whatsoever. No pressure. You are just as welcome. I just wanted to open up an avenue wherein the community can support the channel and myself as I continue to grow and meet the goals that I have to continue to improve and upgrade the platform that we have here towards such a great cause. So, it's open if you so wish. Become a true juicer, as I have called it, and let's build a family with purpose going forward. Briefly, you'll have access to membership community posts from myself consistently, badges to mark the length of your term as a member, changing after each month so you are able to show your loyalty to the cause publicly. And further, I have, as of now, went ahead and created 4 emojis you will have access to if a member, within chat, etc. I created one of Peter Falding, Willow, a mind brain type icon, and as well as a purple glass of mind juice. Alrighty, now back to where I was. The inquest. The part I've been anticipating this whole episode. Thank you to those of you who are still here. This will be well worth it. Now, I've attempted to organize some of my thoughts here. You wouldn't believe the way my desktop looks right now. I've been doing some deep medical journal searching, policy manuals. It's absolutely insane. I've learned a lot, so it's one thing I'm always in favor of. I love the knowledge. So briefly here, and again, if I repeat myself a couple times here or there, I apologize. This is a long episode. I'm starting to hit a wall, but I do want to get this piece in there because to me this is the most important part. The one thing, disclaimer, that I do want to say, in terms of the coroner, they investigate, and it is not their responsibility within the framework of the law to assert criminality or civil liability, okay? So I'm not going to imply anyone here. I'm strictly speaking on the actions of the coroner and what he has done thus far and what we can be shown, all right? Okay, so there are two articles I want to hit on. First one here. Nicola Bulley could only be identified by dental records as inquest into death opens. Nicola Bulley identified by her dental records after she was discovered in the River Wyre on Monday, February 20th or 19th. In an inquest of Lancashire Coroner's Court, it has been revealed that the mum of two was identified by her dental records. Opening an inquest into the death of Nicola Bulley, 45, senior coroner Dr. James Adeley said he had contacted consultant, I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce that, facial surgeon Ian Edwards to ask him to compare dental records obtained by police from the Great Estulin Dental Surgery. Side note, Dr. James Adeley is a very, very well respected, and his resume is insane. Like I've said before, he's used to be a neck and throat surgeon. Now he's an attorney. He has TV shows over there in the UK. He is a coroner if I've ever seen one. He's got a hell of experience. He's the best of the best. Maybe I'm I don't know. Maybe I'm a little biased, I guess, after doing all the research, but just want to give you a forewarning. This isn't some amateur here. This guy's well esteemed. Okay? Dr. James Adeley said he had contacted consultant dental records. We already covered that. He said he examined the body that was located in the River Wyre near Rawcliffe Road in St. Michael's on Wyre at 2:15 on the 20th. Dr. Adeley said the surgeon found restorative work carried out that was identical. He said, I am satisfied on the balance of probabilities and more that positive identification has been made. He continued, the family has been informed of the date, time, and place of the opening of an inquest and have chosen not to attend for reasons I can't quite understand. I still don't understand that statement. It's such an odd choice of words. I don't know, maybe it's an English thing. I don't know. He said remaining evidence gathered by police and the post-mortem examination required further evaluation, and a full inquest was likely to be held in June once availability of a home office pathologist had been checked. That's huge right there. He said this will allow time to collate the facts of the case and allow the experts involved to finalize the findings from investigations that still need to be undertaken. The hearing was attended by 6 members of the press and lasted about 5 minutes, which, by the way, this is normal and is no signal as to, oh, case closed. No, it's a short-term initial hearing. This is normal, okay? In a press conference Monday, Lancashire police described the investigation into her disappearance as hugely complex and highly emotional. Police did not disclose why it took 23 days to find her body in the river. Okay, and the second article I wanted to cover here, and then we'll get to the good stuff. Sunday the 19th, the body was found. The body was released for family funeral. Announced inquest was opened, confirmed by Lancashire police on the 23rd. In a statement, Lancashire police said an inquest into the death of Nicola Bulley has been opened by HM Senior Coroner for Lancashire and Blackburn Darwin. The coroner also ruled that her body could be released for a family funeral. Side note here too. A lot of people I've seen in comments and other threads and forums, her body was within the custody of the coroner for 4 days, and people think, oh, that doesn't mean anything. The typical timeline is 24 to 48 hours, okay? Over here in the U.S., the reason I wasn't aware of Inquest, and I went to law school, okay? I didn't finish because I had a change of heart, but I wasn't even familiar with the term inquest. They still happen here, but they're extremely rare. Why? Due to advancements in technology. Apparently, you can do like an entire computer scan and then obviously save it, so you don't need to keep the body. There are very rare circumstances to where you actually still need to go into the body and look at tissue and organ, okay? But the fact that it was kept for 4 days is being misunderstood as that doesn't mean there was any foul play. That's wrong, okay? 24 to 48 hours, then you could say that. All right? There was a postmortem and an inquest was open. That's huge, and I'll show you later. The coroner's investigation will consider how Miss Bulley came by her death. The investigation will take time to complete to ensure that as complete a picture as possible of the facts concerning Miss Bulley's death is presented at the inquest. This will assist the family in understanding what occurred. Further, inquests usually take between 6 and 12 weeks. The June date is what? 5 months? I mean, that it gives you any understanding. Investigations still need to be undertaken. That's what that means. It continues as part of the process. HM Senior Coroner has requested Lancashire Constabulary produce information gathered during the search for Miss Bulley so it can be considered as part of the investigation, which I assume this is going to lead to her vulnerabilities and whether or not this had to play into it. The inquest into the death of Nicola Bulley is set to take place at Fishersgate County Hall in Preston at 10 a.m. on June 26th, which will be 4 a.m. for me here in the U.S., and I will be watching. You best bet that. Key points before moving forward. He said remaining evidence gathered by police in the postmortem examination required further evaluation, and a full inquest was likely to be held in June. Once availability of a home office pathologist has been checked, okay? Just so everybody understands, there's initially a doctor who does the postmortem. If they're happy with the results or firmly agree upon the cause of death, the certificate is sent to the registrar, and that's pretty much it. The home office pathologist is the home of forensic pathology, everybody. This is a huge deal, okay? Huge deal. And you don't need the body for it, like I said. There's all forms of electronic means to keep back evidence that will be observed by this home office pathologist. He said this will allow time to collate the facts of the case and allow experts involved to finalize the findings from investigations that still need to be undertaken. It continues as part of this process. The coroner has requested Lancashire Constabulary produce information gathered during the search for Miss Bulley so it can be considered as part of the investigation. Now, I'm going to briefly go into like the ABCs of inquest, just so if people are completely have no clue, this will help answer some questions. So if you already understand this, just please bear with me. I will get to the good stuff. Why has an inquest been opened? The law says that the coroner must open an inquest into a death if there is a reasonable cause to suspect that the death was due to anything other than natural causes. Must also open if the individual was in custody or care of the state, which doesn't apply here. Therefore, the coroner will open an inquest in the following situations. The cause of death found at postmortem examination is not natural. The cause of death is unascertained, not found at postmortem. There's other information giving reasonable cause to suspect the death was not natural. Okay? In my opinion, I don't think it was an accident. I've just proven that. Okay? I think you could say suicide just for terms of being straightforward here. I don't believe it was. Or that there was foul play. I think it's down to those two. Suicide or foul play. I don't think there's an accident. She slips and falls, she's found in the first week. She wasn't. You know, and then here's the thing too. I always ask myself this, and I'm getting off track. How do you commit suicide and then control not being found after doing such in a river that's 1.5 feet deep. So I ask myself, how would I plan to choose self-fate and not be found? Go to the ocean somewhere, right? Or jump off a bridge. You see what I'm saying? In that environment, in the context of which we are considering, how does one commit that act and then control not being found? It's not really possible. Think about it. Anyways, that was a little off track. The purpose of the inquest. An inquest is a public judicial inquiry to find answers limited but important to a certain set of questions. Who the deceased was. That's what the initial hearing was. When and where they died, the medical cause of their death, and how they came by their death. It is typically the how they came by their death question that is the main focus of the inquest and the coroner. The coroner cannot, in law, deal with any other matters. It is a fact-finding process. It does not deal with issues of blame and responsibility for the death, or with issues of criminal or civil liability, like I said. These could be assessed in other courts if necessary. The manner of death is classified as natural, accidental, homicide, suicide, or undetermined. Okay? In my opinion, realistically, it's suicide or homicide. But again, suicide, how do you do that and not be found? The coroner will authorize the release of the body within 24 to 48 hours if no autopsy is ordered. Okay? Autopsies. The coroner may order a post-mortem examination to determine the cause, identification of the remains, document injuries, take photographs, and to assist in determining the manner of death. A coroner typically orders a forensic autopsy if foul play is suspected. A coroner typically orders a forensic autopsy if foul play is suspected. Once the autopsy procedure is completed, the remains are released to a funeral home where they will then follow the family's wishes. An inquest may be held to inform the public of circumstances of the death where it will serve some public purpose. And I mentioned this early in the episode. I wonder if this whole thing is just a ruse because the police botched it so bad. But I'm not so sure. I think there's more to it here. An inquest is a public investigation wherein the coroner is in charge. An inquest will happen if they don't know how your relative died or if the death was unnatural. In either case here, the death would be considered unnatural. When a death is reported to a coroner. If a death is reported to a coroner, the documents you need to register the death may be different. The coroner will decide the cause of death is clear, that a post-mortem is needed, to hold an inquest. The cause of death is clear. If that were the case, the doctor would sign the medical certificate. This certificate is then taken to the registrar to register the death, and the coroner issues a certificate to the register stating a post-mortem is not needed. Okay. Side note here. When an inquest is opened into the investigation of a death, they are giving a pink slip. Okay. So in this case, her family is giving a pink slip. It's an interim death certificate, which they bring to the registrar, okay? And then once everything's done, they get an official one. But this is huge, and why I bring it up now, you cannot make an insurance claim on somebody on a pink slip interim death certificate. The fine print tells you the insurance company has to call the coroner for further explanation of answers. So in this case, everything is held in limbo. Monetary, financial, everything is held in limbo, okay? That's the real fact. I'm not making that up. Okay, a post-mortem is needed. The coroner may decide a post-mortem is needed to find out how the person died. This can be done in either a hospital or mortuary. After the post-mortem, the coroner will release the body for a funeral once they have completed the post-mortem examinations and no further examinations are needed. Like I said, given the modern day and age, everything can be recorded and saved. The coroner holds an inquest if the cause of death is unknown, the person might have died a violent or unnatural death, the person has died in prison or police custody, which doesn't apply here. Okay, now I want to specifically focus on the idea of drowning. Okay, so because I think that even if it's suicide, homicide, what have you, drowning is likely the cause of death. Okay, So one is to wonder, well, why didn't they cause that? Well, here's interesting. I learned here. According to the National Library of Medicine, drowning is considered a serious public health concern, claiming an estimated 362,000 lives per year worldwide. That's staggering. I can't believe that. 362,000. A significant number of water-related deaths are attributed to accidental drowning, with a smaller but still significant number represented by suicidal or homicidal drowning. While there may be an initial presumption that all related deaths are accidental drownings, other possibilities must be considered in the investigation of these types of death. This is huge, okay? As drownings as a cause of death is a diagnosis based on the exclusion of all other potential causes. So if someone drowns, even a 30-year vet doctor, the best in his field, can't look at a body and 100% write down on a death certificate, cause of death, drowning. There's really no one indicative sign that, yep, drowning. Like a heart attack, you'd be able to tell, or, anything like that. Which is very interesting, okay? So is a diagnosis based on the exclusion of potential causes. However, there are signs that you look for to see if there is foul play, right? There's certain processes that happen in the cells inside your throat and in your body, your respiration system, that are supposed to be present in abundance if you did drown. If they're minute, this is indicative of showing that you were placed there, right? And I'm not going to get all the way into it because this isn't med school, okay? I'm trying to keep my brain straight here. So just bear with me. I hope this is making sense. All right. The coordinated investigative efforts of multiple agencies and disciplines are required not only for the designation as drowning as the cause of death, but also for the death certification. So this is why it's important to dig deeper, okay? However, I did look in England's history. There was an alarming amount of cases that were written off as drowning that proved later to be potential homicides, right? That's disturbing. Now, someone wanting to commit, how would I get away with murder? Or, staging a drowning wouldn't be a bad choice, to be straightforward. I know that sounds terrible, but it's kind of hard to... In water-related deaths involving submersion, efforts to explain how and why the body became submerged and why the individual was unable to self-extricate become necessary for the most accurate cause and manner of death determination. And this is where I said the real science of it, where they can examine the body and the tissue to determine through the breathing processes and damage of the throat, neck, things like that, to determine why she wasn't able to self-extricate, okay? Was it suicide and therefore a slow progression, or was it intentional asphyxiation beforehand? They're going to be able to determine that, okay? Water-related deaths are often prematurely and at times subconsciously labeled as accidental drownings. While this is often the case, the presumption that a body recovered from within or near a body of water is an accidental drowning can hinder timely recognition of indicators of foul play and other important clues present in or around the death scene, which drives me nuts because the way they handled that scene when they recovered her. But it appears that James Adeley is on top of it. I don't think you could have a better corner on the case, to be honest with you. Furthermore, failure to recognize certain signs, certain scene attributes, and bodily findings suggestive of homicide can hamper further investigation, including interviews, witnesses, and persons of interest or apprehension of suspects. Drowning is largely an asphyxial process with effects on multiple organ systems. The lungs, the anatomic center for respiration, and the primary organs affected by drowning are the primary organs affected by drowning. Respiration is an involuntary process under the control of the central nervous system in response to changes in blood and tissue oxygen, etc. I'm not going to go any further medically, but I hope that helps illustrate how you can determine suicide versus foul play, okay? Now, forensic pathology and how this applies to this case, because Dr. James Adeley referenced needing availability of the home office pathologist. Okay? Now, it starts to get really interesting here. Brace yourselves. Forensic pathology is a service provided to the coroners and police forces in England and Wales to assist in the investigation of homicide or suspicious death cases. So, the involvement of a forensic pathologist in this case, which is present, and I will show it to you, is to assist in the investigation of a homicide or a suspicious death case. That's what this is being categorized as. Not my opinion. That's the truth. Okay? The home office registered forensic pathologists work within a regional group practice which are independent of the police, coroners, and the home office. The pathologists who are concerned with the investigation of suspected homicide are forensic pathologists. The first port of call for assisting the police and coroners in cases where homicide is suspected is forensic pathologists who are registered on a list held by the home office. These are known as the home office registered pathologist. Before the body is released to the next of kin for burial, there will often be a second or defense post. This second postmortem can either be a physical check of the first autopsy findings by re-examining the physical body, or it may take the form of a desktop electronic review of the original pathologist's notes, report, histology, and photographs taken. That's where people are missing the point. It's 2023, everybody. I mean, look at AI these days. It's nuts. They have everything they need stored, okay? So now, I'm going to pull this flow of actions up here, okay? Or that's what I call it. Okay, this is according to the Death of Investigation in England and Wales, the College of Policing Manual, okay? Death discovered 219 Nicola Bulley. So we can see right there at the top, okay? Either a doctor attends or emergency services is called, all right? So the doctor attends, no immediate cause of death issued, drowning. It'd be impossible to determine that right away, so you couldn't. Remember, SED is determined by the exclusion of all other causes. Hence, we get to the coroner being notified, whichever way you go, all right? Okay, so this is in the dead center, the coroner notified, right? If the coroner still has no known cause, following straight down from the center here, from the coroner in the middle, non-forensic post-mortem, which we know was done, okay? The initial first autopsy, okay? Because he even said that further evaluation is necessary, all right? Coronial investigation with or without inquest, if we go down, so if we go to non-forensic post-mortem, that happened, okay? This is the kicker. This is like the big light bulb thing here, okay? You can go straight down, coronial investigation with or without inquest. We know there is an inquest, right? Okay, but if you read between the lines in his words, they need to wait till June for the home office pathologist availability. He's asked the cops not to speak. There's a gag order there. Investigation still needing to be undertaken and further evaluation, okay? So look at the non-forensic postmortem. If you go over, it says suspicious. It goes within the red dotted line, which is notated at the bottom, the medical investigation of homicide. Okay, this is not my opinion. This is understanding what is said by Dr. James Adeley in that first hearing. Availability of the home office pathologist does not go straight down. It goes across. Well, look what word's in the middle. Suspicious. Okay. So then you go down, homicide investigation. Is that taking place? I have no idea. But we do know that there is a forensic post-mortem going on. He's waiting for his availability. Investigations needing to yet be undertaken. Okay. If it gets to the non-forensic post-mortem, with or without inquest. Remember, he doesn't have to have a forensic post-mortem. He doesn't. The coroner is in charge of everything. It's only under his choice and his election that one be necessary. And like I read to you earlier, it's only in suspicious death circumstances or cases where they believe there's a homicide. That's it. So, Dr. James Adeley, one of the best, is waiting for the availability of a home office pathologist, which is a forensic postmortem. The body doesn't have to be retained. It's all recorded. Okay? Remember, I went over the home office pathologists. They consist of forensic pathologists. Look at the flow with this in mind, okay? This technically brings the flow over and across the red dotted line, which I already discussed that. I'm not trying to speculate, merely sharing with you my interpretation as to what your UK standards suggest, given the actions thus taken. Further, also note these statements by Dr. Adeley. He said this will allow time to collate the facts of the case and allow the experts involved to finalize the findings from investigations that still need to be undertaken. And I'm sorry, that's like the 5th time I've said that. It continues as part of the process. Coroner has requested Lancashire Constabulary produce information gathered during the search for Miss Bulley so it can be considered as part of the investigation. Look at this flow here, okay? Non-forensic post-mortem, okay? Go down to the investigation with or without inquest. The fact that they're inserting the availability of the home office pathologist, which I've told you and showed you is a forensic pathologist, okay, brings this case over into the red dotted line, which is signaled as an investigation of a medical homicide. Do you see that? Yeah, nuts, right? All right. So this next part here in the manual that I'm going to pull up is going to kind of hit on the SIO Becky Smith a little bit, and then we'll wrap this baby up. There's just a few things I want to show you here. This manual here, you guys can go into Google and look it up yourself. Just type in this here. The College of Policing. It's insanely long. I don't know how many pages it is. 57. But oh man, the amount of information is insane. Like, dealing with death, investigation, strategy, content. It's a home officer. It's insanely full of details. Initial SIO actions, which is what Becky is. So there's a lot of information in here. I've read the whole thing like 3 times, but I'm not going to go all the way into it. Last note here too. As soon as I finish this, I'm going to upload the video onto YouTube. And you guys will be watching this. If you made it this far, thank you very much, sincerely. From the bottom of my heart, I appreciate it. There's a lot of effort that goes into these, more than you would ever know. With that said, I'm not able to go in and manipulate or take away the ads, because I'm going to go get some sleep first. I'm pretty tired. And then when I wake up tomorrow or later today, I'll go in and take some of the ads out. So I know last time I got a few comments, there's too many ads. It's going to automatically, by default, put ads in there. So if you're to this point and you're frustrated because all the ads, I'm sorry. I sincerely am. If you're watching this later after I've woken up and taken some out, then you're good to go and forget everything I just said. But I had the intention to take some of those out. I can't wait up 2-3 hours for those to process just to take those out. So please keep that in mind. But all right, try to keep this thing under 2 hours here. College of Policing, this is their manual. The medical investigation of suspected homicide. Why am I in here? Because of everything I just showed you has led me to here. I'm not jumping and assuming, this is what it is. I'm using logic and rationale of everything we've been given. Another thing too, the words of Dr. Adeley are very intriguing, right? But also, rewind and consider what Jason the Psychic said too. I'm not going to comment on how that body came to be in the water, or you know what I said. I highlighted it earlier. If you mix that in with Adeley, it's how the body came to be in the water, or what may have been done, or how that body was found. With that said, given that it's into the forensic pathology, I almost wonder if there is any external marking, like strangulation or anything like that. I guess we'll find out. But Dr. Adeley has a reason to bring in a forensic pathologist, and I don't think it's simply to determine whether or not it's drowning. I think there's other evidence, and they're trying to determine whether or not that was the cause in addition to drowning. But again, that's my opinion. I know that and realize I'm probably going to be in some hot water after I release this to the public because, yeah, it just is going to cause a lot of heat and a lot of backlash and, whatnot. Please don't speculate. Please use this responsibly. Please. With that said, I know I've stated Paul, Emma, Louise in the past, and now in this episode here, I've highlighted Ron. I'm going to challenge myself to go back to square one and try to take everybody's names out of my mouth and just look at the case the way it is. If there is foul play here, which I do think there is, like I've told you, there's no coincidences, 10, 15, 20, that there's just no way. There's just no way. There has to be foul play here. There does. And it's, some people will say, oh, you're just saying that you're making something out of nothing. I mean, to each his own. And if that's your opinion, how about instead of you bitching in the comments, you just move right along and find something else to do. This isn't for speculation or conspiracy. This is for truth and answers from Nicola. Like Eddie Vinyl says, the real purpose of this, Nicola's already passed away. Rest in peace. The real purpose of this is so that her daughters one day grow up. And if this wasn't an accident or self-fate, that they get to know the truth as to what happened to their mother. That if she didn't choose self-fate or wasn't an accident, they deserve to know in the memory of their mother that she didn't leave them like that, That's my purpose behind this. That's why do you keep doing it? And you're covering the story for it. That's why. You want to know my honest, heartfelt journal entry, private, and I'm just releasing now. That's what motivates me to do this. If I can help aid anybody or perspective to get answers, it's so those girls have better understanding someday as to why, if there is more answers, But enough of me venting. Let's go. So this is a whole manual. Like I said, if you're interested, look it up. It's a great read. Some of it's kind of dense, but it's good. There's a couple areas I wanted to point out. So like we look on the flow chart, usually there's just a doctor involved, but then the coroner gets involved if it's suspicious. Talks about forensic pathology is overseen by the Home Office Pathology Delivery Board, and it goes into great detail. If you're interested, please check it out. And this is that flow chart that I showed you. Death discovered. Who knows? Who cares? We know that's there. Either way, we know we get from here to the coroner, right? Then we go down to non-forensic postmortem, which definitely takes place. We definitely go down here because there's an inquest. But the fact that the forensics postmortem there, medical homicide investigation. That's my rationale for being in this manual, okay? Pathology strategy. A lot of great information here. I'm not going to read it all, okay? I know you guys can read. I think I've tried to summarize it as best as I possibly could. What was I going to point out? Home Office registered forensic pathologist. And that's another thing, too. People are like, oh, you're just picking out the forensic pathologist. There's other people registered in the Home Office. Anywhere you type in Home Office pathologist and research, the cornerstone pathologist is forensic. It's not like there's 4 departments and because the forensic pathologists are in the Home Office, I'm going to talk about them. No. If you look up Home Office, as you see here, it goes hand in hand with forensic. I can't make this stuff up. Now I'm just kind of rambling, huh? So this is where it is essential there's effective documented communication between the SIO, who's Becky Smith, coroner, and forensic pathologist. So that would be what's taking place right now. And the fact that everything's been gagged, nobody can talk any further. And I've noticed news isn't covering it anymore whatsoever. I mean, I don't blame them because Sky News and ITV News got freaking scalded by Paul, which is a whole nother can of worms, but everybody's afraid to talk about it. That, and you can't trust any narratives. I think every single initial release and report, every single one of the damn things has been scrubbed and changed. Who knows what the truth is, you know? And it's sad because I think it's the police just trying to cover their ass. They still think they got a chance to cover it up. Like, whatever, man. Whatever, you know? Injuries. That's the thing, is I wonder if there was external injuries that were visible. And like they showed, I didn't really explain it, but I showed on the screen earlier, if there was any type of weighting or, you know, ligatures or anything like that, or she was concealed under the brush, like I suggested earlier, any of that could be what Jason's referring to. You know, he's hinting at something being odd, that it not just being a accident in her body, you know. In all cases where additional experts are used for pathology-related investigations, the original forensic pathologist should be consulted, and all the necessary steps must be taken to ensure the forensic pathologist is responsible in consultation with the coroner and the SIO. See, I wonder if Becky's still got full reins on this, given how everything happened. I don't know. I got the other specialists that come involved. There's reporting to the coroner. The SIO, which is Becky, and I think that's why she was at the scene, responsible for reporting to the coroner's office immediately that investigation is underway. Becky Smith was at the scene, you know, and this is her initial actions. Details of all persons attending the scenes, victims are recorded. Separate medical practitioners should be used for victim and suspect examination. So technically, you would normally just bring a doctor, but because the coroner doesn't have to be involved, that's Becky's choice. So I mean, she did make the right decision there. And I'm thoroughly impressed with James Adeley's handling so far. The only thing is I wish this crime scene attendance had been handled a little bit better. You know, it wasn't really. I guess they had cops cording them off, but they didn't really assess the scene. You know, they didn't really take anything from it. I don't believe. I mean, Curtis Media caught it on camera. You know. Briefing the forensic pathologist prior to attending a crime scene. See, again, crime and forensic pathologist and home office all go hand in hand. You know, I can't make this stuff up. Because I know I'm going to get people saying that, oh, you're just creating narratives. No, I'm not. I mean, do the research yourself. If you're going to go and claim and comment that, you're the one that looks like the idiot because you apparently don't understand what I'm saying nor took the time to look into it yourself. I did. Okay? And again, this is my personal time. You know, this is my passion. I don't do this for anything but. Of course, I'm trying to build a community, but you get what I'm saying. The best location for post, okay. Yeah, I think I'm going to wrap things up here. Yes, he's removal of the body on the scene, we said, is approved by the SIO, which she was there, so it would have been approved. Authorized by the coroner. Trace evidence has not been collected. See if this, it wasn't. I mean, it didn't look like they had any crime scene vehicles there. Bags may be placed over the deceased's hands before the body is removed. See, who knows if that would happen, you know? I'm not going to read that, so that's kind of morbid. Yeah, so as you can tell here, I'm going to be done. I'm not going to keep going. But, I mean, this read is fantastic if you're curious. I mean, if you're with me still to this point, I assume that this stuff does interest you. So do go look this up. It downloads. I have it on my phone, too. But it's really intriguing. There's a lot of great information in here that pertains to Nicola's case, potentially. Yeah, so I think I've covered everything I want to cover here today. So yeah, this one has been very dense depth, taking a lot of time. That's why it's taken me a week to get it out. I appreciate everybody still sticking around. I'll try to get the next content out sooner. I'm curious to see what the feedback is on the wrong information. A special shout out to those that have been suggesting the channel. I appreciate it more than you know. People that email me, I love it. Keep it up. Also, if you have any information, regarding specific properties, things like that, I'd love to see it. I try to respond to everybody. It's really hard, trying to make this stuff deal with the rest of my life and then respond to, like, you guys wouldn't understand the amount of emails that I'm getting. It's insane. I love it. It's a great sign, but it's really hard to keep up. Don't let that deter you. If you have a good thought, please do send it. And I will get back to you if at all possible. So, I consider everyone trying to help a positive. So, special shout out to Curtis Media, the footage you provide, the insight, it really helps. Armchair Detective Blue, Eddie Vinyl Breaks. Yeah, I think I've learned a lot from all of you guys, and I think it's kind of cool. We're all still kind of covering the case for the right reasons. So, yeah, let's keep it up. You guys over in the UK, I heard about the baby case. That's awfully sad. But of course, here in the US, we have a shooting every other day, I swear. And it's funny, someone commented in the last video, you can't just mention a gun, over here in the UK, guns aren't legalized. And I laughed when I read that because it's so true. It's really sad and tragic that we over here in America have become so desensitized to things like that. Like, I remember when I was a young kid, Columbine happened. And I remember it being like earth-shattering, like, holy cow, Columbine. Because it was a huge deal. Stuff like that doesn't happen, anywhere. The one over in Colorado. And now in the last 5-10 years, holy smokes, I can't even keep track. It's gotten so bad. It's gotten so bad. It's just tragic. Like, seriously, it's almost daily. Can't even keep up. So yeah, whoever made that comment, thank you. That gave me my cultural awareness check. And that's good. I need that. I forget that sometimes I get desensitized to things like that. And I don't intend to come across as all American and whatever. No, I try to be as humble and open to understanding all cultures and lifestyles. And I'm literally not judgmental at all. If I have a bias or I'm ignorant in an area, I appreciate people pointing that out so I can grow as a person, But yeah, you guys are getting to know me quite well. This case has really hit a lot of people. That's really moving. I hope Nicola can feel that. So, but like I said, it's for her daughters and finding that truth. That's how I approach it. To each his own, right? But I'm about to say good night, but it's actually midday over there for you. It's 4:30 here in America, so I'm gonna upload this and do all that and then get some sleep. I'm tired, so remember, become a true juicer if you'd like to. If not, that's cool. But until next time, everybody, Mind Juice out.